Pay me, pay me, pay me my silver now. Pay me or go to jail. Pay me my silver now.
RoadToRuta.com. We are seeing in the gold and silver markets why I've been saying they can put the price of silver to minus $40 with a click of a mouse. They did it with oil. They can do it with silver. They can do it with gold. They can do it with anything. The reason I've been screaming that since 2007 is that the price of silver is controlled and rigged on the COMEX. It should be obvious to everybody. They're going to gun for $50. Of course they are. They're going to get it below $50. Will they go to minus $40 like they did with oil? I doubt it, because it really would shatter the mirage that you see in front of you about silver pricing. Silver has been rigged for probably 180 years now, price suppressed in various forms since the early 1970s. It was through computer programs and derivatives written by Alan Greenspan. Yes, we did have the passing of Greenspan. I did a special report on the private road, and I published it on YouTube the other day. Ruta is dead. R.I.P. Alan Greenspan. Alan Greenspan was the computer programmer who first wrote the computer programs to create our electronic financial system in the late 1960s, early 70s, as he blamed himself for Y2K because he only programmed in 2 digits instead of 4. But he also wrote the computer rigging programs to first at Townsend Greenspan, where he made millions and millions of dollars by using the rigging programs. And then he either gained a conscience or was asked directly by his mentor, Arthur Burns, the head of the Federal Reserve, to bring those rigging programs over to the U.S. government, to the banking cabal, in order to go off a gold standard, which we did in the early 70s. And the only reason it has lasted so long, it's the first time in history that being off a gold standard has lasted this long. It's usually 6 to 7 years and everything implodes. Is through the computer programs that are still running, controlled mainly by the banks and the Federal Reserve. This is clearly an operation by Scott Bissett, the bullion banks like J.P. Morgan Chase, the Treasury, the Federal Reserve, obviously. So there you have it. That's why I've been screaming. You must be mentally capable of looking at the price of silver and seeing it at minus $40, because they can do it with a click of a mouse. Will they? Probably not. They'd shut down the exchange before they did that. I do ultimately think that the exchange will shut down this year. So if there's no COMEX trading silver, where are you going to get the price? LBMA is not even an exchange. If the COMEX shuts down, the LBMA will shut down, and so will all the trading hubs for silver. And then it's not going to matter price. It's going to matter how many ounces do you have in your own possession. I hope everybody takes heed when they look at stuff like this. Yes, of course they're gunning for $50. They programmed it in. As soon as they went over 50, they had a plan. We'll bring it to at the end of January, we'll bring it to all-time highs, and then we'll slam it down. We'll hold it down until there's so much pain that no silver investor in their right mind would go out and buy an ounce, because they think they're going to get cheaper silver tomorrow. And that's how the game is played, my friends. It's sad. It's depressing. Knowing that your government is literally rigging the markets against you as an investor is hard to take, but we've known it for a long time. The only way to win this fight is to be on the sidelines with your silver, your ounces of silver in your hand. I know a lot of Road to Ruta people, that's exactly where they are. They don't look at price, they count how many ounces they have, and hell, will they get it under $50? I'm pretty sure they will. How long it will stay there, I don't know. I think this is the end game, so they could get it down to 20 or 10 or 1. Does that mean you can go to your local coin shop and get some silver at $1, or they'll hand you $40 for taking it? Of course not. But this is the end game. The end game was always to crash the system. and we're getting very close to that. As you can tell, the old wedge that they set up over the past, basically since September, it's worked to perfection for them. Now they're hammering it down below, and this is when the momentum traders and all the tech funds, everybody who plays the game goes short because they're going to push it down farther. And my program says, well, if it goes under this price, I got to short it. And that's how you get the rocket fuel for going up. But again, it's rigged. Every trade on computer programs written by Alan Greenspan in the 1960s. But you will hear in the mainstream, here is why gold and silver were hammered down. Hawkish Warsh, the new Fed dude, hammers barbarous relic. And that's actually, it's not a bad title. Of course, they explain it completely different than what the reality is. Warsh hammers barbarous relic, meaning gold, means he clicked a mouse. That's all he did. You can say whatever he wants. It doesn't matter. Everything is rigged now, and has been, and everybody knows it, or everybody should know it. Gold plunged back below $4,000 an ounce for the first time since November 2025 this morning as a resurgent dollar and the prospect of higher interest rates bring bullion's 3-year bull market to a halt. Now down 30% from its January highs. Silver's down over 50%. The precious metal has posted double-digit gains for each of the last 3 years, more than doubling in price as central banks, money managers, and retail investors all piled into the trade. The rally ran out of steam late January, shortly after the precious metals hit all-time highs nearing $5,600 an ounce. They clicked their mouse and made it go there. From September all the way to the end of January. Remember, we were getting into January and all the banks were saying, yeah, the gold and silver are going to go crazy. This is great. And I'm yelling, when they say that, it's a rig job. And the only way to survive it is get your metal out of their system and watch and wait till it's over. And it will be beneficial to you at the end of the day. But right now, it's not easy to sit through watching silver get slammed below 60. It'll get slammed below 50, no doubt in my mind. Will they put it to minus 40? I don't know. Could they? Absolutely. It's a mouse click. Again, all gets back to Alan Greenspan writing the first computer. Root A is a programming term. And how did I find all this stuff out? By going through the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston's archives and stumbling across this comic book and a teacher's guide to the comic book at the Fed. It's still there. Wishes and Rainbows and Road to Root of the Teacher's Guide. I know, it's insane. But that's the life we're living. We have to live through this to move on to something better. We will never see $600 silver on the COMEX. Never. Why? Because it would bankrupt a whole bunch of the banks that are short. So no, they'll shut down the COMEX before it gets to that point. And say, oh, there's a glitch, you name it. They haven't even pulled out the good stuff. You know, like shutting down the internet and all that crap that we're going to have to go through over the next few months. So just hang tight with your silver. This too shall pass. Again, yeah, they can gun for $50 and slam it. I mean, right now it's costing them metal, but not much. You know, you look at the COMEX, not much is happening at all as far as deliveries. Remember, since September, massive deliveries everywhere. Deliveries have stopped. I think it's because there's no metal that's free and available, but hey, who knows? But clearly the silver inventories have flatlined. And let me show you. Here's the COMEX. Now, the COMEX warehouse counts everything is the total, which is currently 322 million ounces, supposedly in inventory, in COMEX warehouse inventories. We do know that SLV, the largest ETF, and other ETFs are required, according to their prospectus, to keep the metal that they're storing in COMEX warehouses. It doesn't say that they have to keep it in the eligible category or the registered category. Registered means it's ready to be delivered. Supposedly right now, 86 million ounces are ready to be delivered, right? JP Morgan, the custodian of SLV Silver, is keeping about 100 million ounces. Is it 99? But no, it's 90 million ounces. 90 million ounces in the COMEX warehouses. And the other 400 million are in the LBMA. So of this 86, probably the vast majority of that 86 is actually COMEX warehouse. And we see that when we see the deliveries, which is almost nothing this month, the entire month. And next month is a delivery month, and we'll see very little again because there's very little metal left. Whatever that does get delivered has to be put into the warehouse, and we've seen that happen. So just hang on tight. Everything has flatlined. India literally only imported 1 million ounces. They've had like 78 million ounce years, or months, excuse me. So yeah, the word has gone out. We're out of silver. We're gonna play the endgame that we've always told you would happen. The plug will be pulled on the entire financial system. And when's it going to happen? The moment that the world knows about this. This is from Wall Street on Parade. Now, this is an older article, but it was all relevant. Wall Street on Parade, the website, they've been all over the Epstein stuff, and they literally pull this stuff out of court cases, out of investigations from the FBI. This is a letter. An open letter to Congressman James Comer, chair of the House Oversight and Government Reform Committee. Dear Chairman Comer. And this was written on September 2nd, 2025. On August 31st, you sent a letter to the U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent seeking no later than September 15th all suspicious activity reports, SARS reports, filed by banks in reference to or relating to Mr. Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. The lovely Jenny Moonstone had been telling us for years, silver will not be freely traded until the pedophile rings, the exposure of the abuse of children is exposed, and the banking cabal that was involved. And not only was the number one bank of Epstein that did almost everything not involved, they were partners in this business. And it's insane, the whole Trump coming out and saying, oh, there's nothing left, nothing to see here. And all the Democrats think, yeah, Trump's just trying to hide what he did. Although I think he is all over these files. I don't know what he did with the girls, but it's bigger than that. If he exposes that not only was Epstein running child trafficking to blackmail people for the Mossad and for the CIA or whoever he worked for, the banking cabal, they were partners with other things. I mean, he had over $1 billion worth of transfers. And it's not just JP Morgan, but JP Morgan is the largest bank on the planet. And when this comes out, and I think it will, and I think this is the ultimate how to pop the derivative bubble. If you guys have been watching, JP Morgan went from number one derivative holder, U.S. bank, to number 3 last December, which is the last report we had. That has never been the case, going all the way back since they started recording the amounts of derivatives that are being held. And it's still massive, over $50 trillion in derivatives. Anyway, the letter went on to say, on February 14th, 2024, bipartisan staff of the Senate Finance Committee conducted in-camera review of thousands of pages of Treasury Department files documenting the flow of money in and out of Jeffrey Epstein's accounts. The Treasury Department's Epstein file contains significant information on the sources of funding behind Epstein's sex trafficking activities. One of those sources of income is he got paid more commission than any of the J.P. Morgan salespeople because he was bringing them massive clients. Google, Microsoft, everybody's being brought to J.P. Morgan Chase through Epstein, not through their sales reps. The Treasury Department's Epstein file contains significant information on the sources of funding behind his sex trafficking activities. For example, one of the documents in the Treasury Department's Epstein file indicates that between 2003 and 2019, there were more than 4,725 wire transfers, totaling $1.08 billion involving Jeffrey Epstein and his associates. The Treasury Department Epstein file also contains details of hundreds of millions in payments to Epstein from Wall Street financiers. That's a plural. It's not just J.P. Morgan Chase. They are knee-deep in it, of course. So is Goldman Sachs. So is Deutsche Bank. This is the heart of the banking cabal, the pedo cabal. This is where they overlap. And it's a really good article. Go to Wall Street on Parade. And listen to this. The 11th Circuit Appellate Court reviewed the Justice Department's handling of the Epstein case and its failure to inform his victims about his sneaky non-prosecution agreement, issued a scathing opinion in 2021. The court wrote, quote, "The facts underlying this case, as we understand them, are beyond scandalous. They tell a tale of national disgrace. Over the course of 8 years between 1999 to 2007, well-heeled and well-connected financier Jeffrey Epstein and multiple co-conspirators sexually abused more than 30 young girls, including Ms. Wild, in Palm Beach, Florida, and elsewhere in the United States and abroad. Epstein paid his employees to find girls and deliver them to him, some not even 15 years old. Once Epstein had the girls, he either sexually abused him or himself or gave them over to be abused by others, or both. Epstein in turn paid bounties to some of his victims to recruit others into his ring." So that's not me saying it. It's not Wall Street on Parade saying it. That's the appellate court of the Justice Department. Look at the multiple people, co-conspirators. And here's the damning one. This is the one that this is the one that will just take down the largest bank and largest derivative holder, thus taking down the whole system. And this is from the Attorney General's office for the U.S. Virgin Islands in their civil complaint, which J.P. Morgan paid to get out of. Quote, "The investigation revealed that J.P. Morgan knowingly, negligently, and unlawfully provided and pulled the levers through which recruiters and victims were paid and was indispensable to the operation and concealment of the Jeffrey Epstein trafficking enterprise. J.P. Morgan, that's the largest bank and the largest derivative holder, facilitated and concealed wire and cash transactions that raised suspicions of and were in fact part of a criminal enterprise whose currency was the sexual servitude of dozens of women and girls in and beyond the Virgin Islands. Human trafficking was the principal business of the accounts Epstein maintained at J.P. Morgan. J.P. Morgan Chase was charged with 2 felony counts by the Justice Department in 2014 for looking the other way at Bernie Madoff's obvious money laundering inside the bank. The bank failed to file the mandatory suspicious activity reports in the U.S., even telling UK regulators that it suspected Madoff was running a Ponzi scheme. Now it turns out while J.P. Morgan Chase was facilitating the Madoff Ponzi scheme, impacting thousands of victims, it was simultaneously ignoring Jeffrey Epstein's money laundering that facilitated sexual assault on girls as young as 14. J.P. Morgan Chase was Epstein's primary bank, wiring money around the world for him, providing him with hundreds of thousands of dollars in hard cash year after year, giving him $50 million line of credit, according to court filings. Now, a $50 million line of credit has to have JP Morgan Chase's CEO sign off on it. Jamie Dimon claimed he didn't even know, under oath, he claimed he didn't even know who Epstein was till 2019, which is a lie, another lie. We located among the court filings an expert report written by former FBI agent of 23 years, Sean O'Neill, who indicated in writing that JP Morgan Chase had impeded the federal criminal investigation of Epstein. This is the largest derivative holder in the world. That is going to be revealed the moment that the real stuff comes out, which is not only were they financing him, giving him cash for the girls, they were business partners with Jeffrey Epstein and the board of directors and senior management. And they all knew about it, participated in it, and probably had control files from sexual encounters that Epstein set up with senior management. We know Jess Staley, the number 2 guy at JP Morgan Chase, the guy who was going to take Jamie Dimon's spot back in, I think, in 2009 that was talked about, was the key contact at JP Morgan Chase. And Staley used to call Epstein, oh, we're like brothers. They controlled JP Morgan Chase. And Epstein loved to brag that he was a Rothschild banker. Because he was. Why am I telling you all this? It gets back to this. Silver is rigged 24/7 every day. But so is the stock market. 24/7 every day. The control mechanism is in place, was in place, has been in place since the early 1970s when Alan Greenspan wrote the first computer programs to rig markets. The control over markets is ultimately as much power as you can wield. It's even greater than militaries. With a click of a mouse, they can destroy currencies, they can destroy lives, and they have many lives. I do believe there are good guys behind the scenes looking to take out the banking cabal, looking to expose the criminality, and we are at that point. And I've been screaming it for years. What happens? What happens if the derivative bubble goes? Yes, everything, 401ks will be wiped out. Checking account, savings account, everything. The ability to purchase things. You won't be able to get gas at the gas station or food at the grocery store for hopefully a brief period of time. They've been planning to go back to a gold standard since they found all the gold in the Grand Canyon. 10 times what your guys like Jeffrey Christian will tell you, there's 220,000 or 230,000 tons of gold that have ever been mined in the world. That's all there is. That's bullshit. It's a lie. There's 10 times that in my estimation. And from the information I got, you can just start with Yamashita's gold if you're really interested in finding out just how much gold might be out there. I don't even think the U.S. government knows, but I do know they locked up a hell of a lot of gold in the Grand Canyon, up and down, like before the Grand Canyon and Marble Canyon and Glen Canyon, Marble Canyon. I think Marble's below, Glen Canyon's above, and it was found literally over a century ago, and it's crazy. Find out more about that, go to the blog at roadtoruta.com. Click on educational resources. These are links to articles over the 25 years I've been doing this that show. I mean, look at this. Look at this article. Here's a classic. June 19th, 2012. Literally, the year before we create the Federal Reserve, and all of a sudden we go from a gold standard to, fiat money. Ultimately the start. Tell of vast riches in the Grand Canyon. Men engaged in gold dredging operations expect to astonish the world. I've been to the Grand Canyon. I saw where they were strip mining a mountain. And then Woodrow Wilson locked it up. Created the Grand Canyon National Park. There's no mining there. You can't take a pebble out of the Grand Canyon. There's over 2,000 caves in the Grand Canyon that you're not allowed to go in. Nobody's allowed to go in. There's one cave that people can go in, and they can't even go all the way in. And all kinds of stories of people finding gold in the Grand Canyon, finding ancient artifacts in the Grand Canyon. All the remote viewers saw vast warehouse-type things literally filled with treasures and gold and all kinds of stuff. I mean, this article from the New York Times, they're talking about billions and billions of ounces. Now, a billion ounces of gold is a lot of gold, especially in 1912. There was only about 200 to 300 million ounces that had ever been mined in the world. And here's the New York Times talking about billions and billions of ounces. Listen to this. F.D. Watson, who has been conducting operations for the Chicago concern, has come out of Lee's Ferry to report to his principals and make further arrangements to carry on the work. He declares that when the whole field has been developed, the supply of gold in the world will have been increased by billions. Billions. That's, I mean, right off the top of your head, back then we had 200 to 300,000, 200 to 300 million ounces total in the world. And they're talking about adding billions that they found. Better lock that up. And here's the quote. Quote, I know that it will be difficult to comprehend that I have a correct conception of the wealth that is buried in the banks of the Colorado Canyon, he says, but I can demonstrate every statement I make to be absolutely true, and that my chief shortcoming is the inability to comprehend the vastness of the riches that lie along that great stream. At Lee's Ferry, there are mountainous deposits of marl silts that contain the capstone formation that contains equal values. These harder formations, however, are a little more difficult for treatment. Underneath the stony cap is the softer silt that practically melts like sugar under the hydraulic treatment. This is in 1912. They had to bring a steamship from San Francisco over rail cars. Literally, they had they made it in San Francisco, they deconstructed it and sent it to the Grand Canyon, the most remote part. There wasn't any roads into the Grand Canyon. Rail had just begun into that area, and then so they had to pack all the parts and metal and everything to get into Lee's Ferry. They had to bring it in by mule. Huge amount of money. It's like finding gold on the moon and putting together a team to get some mining equipment up to the moon. That would be a similar comparison to what was done to get mining equipment into the Grand Canyon in 1912. Exposed to sight are billions of yards of this silt contained with more billions of dollars in wealth and precious metal that the human mind can't possibly grasp in computation. For 2 years, we have been experimenting on the methods of extraction, and it goes on. Did you know there was a gold rush in the middle of the Grand Canyon? It was well documented. Before and after it was, obviously after it was shut down and put into a national park, so nobody's been allowed to touch it. And yes, most of it is, of what they're talking about in this article, is placer gold, the little specks of gold in the sand. And along these mountains where you can hydraulically mine them. And by the way, they're talking about getting billions of ounces back then. Imagine with today's technology of pulling gold. I mean, there's television shows of them going and just sticking a steam shovel into the sand in Alaska and pulling out all this gold. There's so much gold in the world. And it's the opposite with silver. That's why I'm screaming, hey, silver's going to go 1-to-1 with gold. There's so much more gold than there is of silver. And when people find that out, bar the door. Anyway. Yeah, go to roadtoroot.com, click on blog, and go to the educational resources. And there's all kinds of stuff in there. the 9/11 gold and silver at the bottom of the World Trade Center. I have a paper on who did it. Who did 9/11? There's 3 papers on that in here under, look at the DTCC information. All this stuff has been on the Road to Ruta website since 2010. The original Road to Ruta documentation, Ruta writing 9/11 in the sand. This is coming from the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston. The collateral damage articles written by the OCC, the ONI, Office of Naval Intelligence. Who did it? Who did 9/11? Go read it. It was fully documented. And no, it wasn't the 19 hijackers. Fort Knox gold, is it there? Is it not there? Who cares? It's only 8,000 tons. Well, actually, they claim there's 4,000 tons, I think, in Fort Knox. Obviously, it's been rehypothecated, meaning it's been sold multiple times. The gold might still be there, and it probably is, because you don't need gold to destroy the price. You need gold derivatives, which they have on the COMEX. There's gold treaties. Here's U.S. military silver analysis. U.S. military said, oh my God, we cannot sell the silver. We need so much silver for military. Go check out those articles. Deep capture movie, naked shorting, failure to deliver stock, all this stuff. Go check it out, roadtoruta.com. And from now, in memory of Alan Greenspan, we're giving away the Road to Ruta website, private road. For every private road subscription, we're giving away the Ruta coin, the Ruta Lives coin, the one with the heart right there. With every private road subscription. This is limited time. It ends at midnight on the 4th of July. We'll be doing live shows on the 4th with Jenny Moonstone and Litecoin Lisa are coming out to help bring in the 250th anniversary of our great country. We used to have a great country, and we can very easily get back to that by destroying the cabal that controls our lives. Yes, you'll lose your 401k, you'll lose your checking account, your savings account, all that stuff. But you'll also lose the most important part, which is debt. And debt, all that debt is owned by the 1%. All those stocks are in the name of Seed & Company anyway, through the DTCC. And they're going to claim, oh, it's not yours. You're going to own nothing and like it. Where have we heard that before? Anyway, go to roadtoruta.com, click on subscribe today, and check out the Ruta coin. There's a video there. It's pretty cool. Go check it out. This is Bix Weir. Hang in there. Again, they can click the mouse, put the price of silver and gold to wherever they want. Remember, why has gold gone up so much and silver hasn't? It's not because of supply and demand. It's because the bankers have the gold and they don't have the silver. Silver is much more important to rig. That's why they've literally, historically, silver's been anywhere from 5 to 1 to 15 to 1 until Alan Greenspan's computer programs developed in the 1960s and 70s. And then they control all prices. So yes, I do think gold and silver will go to at least 1 to 1. Probably 1 to 10, where 10 ounces of gold buys you 1 ounce of silver. And that's due to 170 years of price suppression. That's all I got. This is Bix Weir. I'll talk to you later.